Good morning, and I'm back. Uh, this was a rare Thursday uh, parking lot Thursday, I guess. Uh, anyway, yeah, shopping is a little. We're off our schedule, kind of, uh, lately. So I apologize for being about 25 minutes late this morning because we had to run down to this time Trader Joe's to get Gerolsteiner, and they were out. I don't know about you, but more and more things are missing or late, and if they are there, sometimes they double in price over just a week time. So if things are getting better and cheaper and more available where you are, uh, congratulations. Anyway, uh, a while back I did an interview with a Spanish uh, magazine. Okay, and it had to be, of course, translated and uh, and it was finally published, and it's a wonderful, slick magazine with esoteric magazine with all sorts of uh, beautiful website with music and things like that. I posted a little clip of it uh, on my Facebook page. Just it'll appear probably right under today's thing. And I took because it was a Spanish language uh, magazine, and so much of the world's population speaks Spanish, and Spain has uh, a large and very venerable uh, occult and Kabbalistic uh, history and tradition. And many of my Mexican and South American uh, friends, uh, are write me, and so I was very pleased to do a Spanish language magazine. Uh, so I took the time to answer as best I could. It's a very short interview, really, but and parts of it made me think about things myself. Uh, because if I'm not obliged to think, I'm just happy not to. Uh, but when just like I would never write a book unless I had a deadline. So that's just the way I am. But there was a couple things, and at the time, which is just a couple months ago here, at the time I probably shared with you a few little snippets of the interview, but it's still very short, the whole thing, and I finally got a confirmation that the magazine had been released, and so I'm going to share it with you again. The magazine is called Pharo, Pharo, Pharo-Nox, N-O-N, Pharo-Nox, a new cultural esoteric journal. And here's the questions and my answers. The question: since the 1970s, you have witnessed and shaped the evolution of contemporary esotericism and the Thelemic movement. How do you recall your first steps in those years? second part of that question. What major changes have you observed over the decades, both in practice and in community? And how do you envision the future of Thelema in the context of the 21st century? And here's my answer. In the mid and late 1960s, as a result of a series of psychedelic experiences, my spiritual interest turned to the classics of Eastern mysticism, the Tao Te Ching, the Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita, the Yi Ching, Zen Buddhism, and the works of more modern yogis like Paramahansa Yogananda, Vivekananda, Ramakrishna. I felt immediately comfortable with these teachings, almost as if I had learned and practiced them before. For a few years, I really wanted to be a first-class Eastern mystic. I eventually realized that I was basically not well suited to the Eastern approach to self-realization. Also, I surrendered to the fact that I am really lazy, and the Eastern practices were starting to look like hard work. In computer terms, it was as though I was trying to run advanced Eastern software on my primitive Western hardware. I started to search for a more approachable Western or outward-pointing equivalent to the Eastern inward-pointing practices of yoga and Zen. I eventually found it in a simple little Kabbalah book called the Sefer Yetzirah. Its simple use of numbers and Hebrew letters to describe how existence comes into existence helped me better understand passages from the Tao Te Ching, the Emerald Tablet of Hermes, and the Bhagavad Gita. From there I stumbled onto the Hermetic doctrines of the Rosicrucians and on the esoteric aspects of tarot, and eventually the works of Aleister Crowley. You ask about changes I've seen in the last 50 years or so. The simple answer is, I've seen lots of changes. The most obvious change is the amount of esoteric literature available. Books, courses, workshops, videos. Also the proliferation of occult and magical orders and organizations. In the 1970s, there was precious little material available, and I had to search for the used and rare bookshops just to find the most basic foundational material. Many of my first Aleister Crowley books had to be purchased in England by one of my guitar students who was visiting London. But the abundance of available information presented a new set of problems. There is so much material out there that beginning students can become overwhelmed and easily confused and discouraged. Also, there is much nonsense on the market that is quite frankly worthless. Also, I regret to say, much of the new material is simply commentaries and distillations of old material. Many of my writings, I must plead guilty to that also. But I would like to see more fresh, innovative, and revolutionary developments in magic. How do I envision the future of Thelema in the context of the 21st century? Sadly, I see a period of time, perhaps a long period, of difficulties, perhaps even persecution, of many organizations, orders, and individuals who profess unorthodox views of religion and philosophy. Many of the writings of Aleister Crowley are easily misunderstood by those who've not taken the time to do their homework. As a social and religious movement, Thelema and Thelemites may for a season need to maintain a low public profile. Question. In your most recent book, Tarot Architect, your most recent book, Tarot Architect, seems to invite the reader to build and explore their own system in dialogue and tradition. At the same time, in your work, you've engaged with concepts such as the cube of space, which are not part of the classical canon. How do you personally navigate this creative tension between fidelity to tradition and the need for personal innovation? What does it mean to you to remain faithful to Thelema? And this is where I've shared that question and this answer with you just a couple days ago, and also in a meme that I created and posted that has been shared many times, but this is where it first appeared. My answer, yes, the Tarot Architect has been keeping me busy for the last couple years. And now that it is out, I am spending a lot of my time giving talks and interviews about it. I must disagree with your statement that the cube of space is not part of the classical canon. It's true. It's a true and faithful graphic expression of the wisdom of the Sefer Yetzirah, the most fundamental, the oldest, and perhaps the most traditional of traditional books of the Kabbalah, written in Hebrew. It's tale of a step-by-step process of how the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet bring forth everything from nothing. Translates seamlessly to how the 22 trump cards of the tarot illustrate the entire cycle of creation. What does it mean to me to be faithful to Thelema? I cannot answer this question for anyone else, but simply let me say, A, I have come to the realization that existence itself is consciousness and exists as a self-evident universal necessity. B, I've come to the realization that I am a reflected monad of this great consciousness, and my existence is also of self-evident universal necessity. C, I have come to the realization that I would not exist and be self-aware of my existence if there wasn't some act, some duty, some contribution to existence that must be performed that only I can perform. That act, that duty, that specific contribution to existence, that task is my will. And then I quote the book of the law. Thou hast no right but to do thy will. Striving to recognize and then perform that task from day to day, hour to hour, minute to minute. That's how I remain faithful to Thelema. Okay, they asked the question, you recently attended NotoCon. That's the National OTO It was the U.S. National OTO convention held every 2 years. How was this experience for you? What does it mean to meet so many different sensibilities united under a single ideal? Do you think such a gathering would be viable in Europe, given the current situation of fragmentation and polarization? Oh, I tell you, if there's fragmentation and polarization in Europe, we've got it in spades here, too. So, very good question here. Here's my answer. The U.S. Grand Lodge has been hosting Noticons every 2 years for 30 years. And each time they get bigger and more interesting and inspiring. This was a very memorable one for me because we celebrated my 50th anniversary as an OTO initiate. I got to speak and share my thoughts about being in the order longer than anyone, including Crowley. I even got a chance to sing. Plus, there was cake. And I brought a lot of it home with me, too. It is indeed an awesome experience to gather together with so many Thelemites from around the country and around the world and realize how such a diverse assortment of individuals from different backgrounds and cultural attitudes can be united by the liberating principles of Thelema. But people are people, and as you point out, there's a great deal of polarization among people who otherwise have many other things in common. As far as the OTO is concerned, however, we will not support attitudes and behaviors that violate the fundamental principles of the mission statement of the OTO. And that mission statement is our prime directive, if we want to use Star Trek terms. Crowley wrote, quote, "We are infinitely tolerant, save for intolerance." And the U.S. Grand Lodge mission, our mission statement, says this, quote, "OTO is dedicated to the high purpose of securing the liberty of the individual and his or her advancement in light, wisdom, understanding, knowledge, and power through beauty, courage, and wit on the foundation of universal brotherhood." OTO members represent a broad spectrum of social and political opinions, but we do not tolerate behavior of members who would deny, divert, undermine our basic principles of the foundation of universal brotherhood. I've been privileged over the years to attend other national OTO gatherings in England, Poland, Norway, Denmark, Germany, Australia, Japan, Brazil, Chile, Macedonia, and Croatia. I've encountered no unfraternal behavior. Oh, excuse me. Yes. And I've encountered no unfraternal behavior among the brethren. And I must add here, those are our ideals. But like the wonderful document of the Constitution of the United States declaring the all men are created equal by a bunch of slaveholders. Okay, that's all true. They were people, they were fallible, but they enshrined their ideal. And it was something constantly and perpetually to be worked on. And obviously in any organization, there are assholes. There are many assholes. But we strive for the ideal constantly. but I digress. A few months ago, you were on retreat in the desert. Would you like to tell us about what you did, the rituals, the intention? And my answer is in April, I held a 3-day Enochian Vision Magic workshop in the desert of Joshua Tree, California. The area is one of the most beautiful and magical places on earth, and even though my daily workshops took place indoors at an awesome theater-like venue, our evenings were spent under the star-filled desert sky. We even had local astronomers bring their telescopes. Enochian vision magic is a highly personal magical system. It's not particularly well suited for group workings. But I did the best I could to engage the group in Enochian magical operations during our daily sessions. After the daily sessions, each attendee was encouraged to retire to their campground, caravan, or motel room and privately perform the magical operations they learned during the day. It was one of the most memorable magical experiences of my life. And I'm looking forward to the 3-day workshop coming up in March in Joshua Tree, based on the tarot and the tarot architect. Okay, you were widely regarded as one of the most productive, very flattering. What projects are you currently working on? Is there any book, initiative, or idea you'd like to share with our readers as a preview of what is to come? Okay. My answer is I'm currently working on the 25th anniversary edition of the Chicken Kabbalah of Rabbi Lamed Ben Clifford. Wow, 25th. For Weiser. And new revised incarnation of my novel Accidental Christ, the story of Jesus as told to his uncle, and the long-awaited new edition of Homemade Magic, both which will be published by Schiffer. Perhaps most exciting, for me at least, is the novel Jim Brakowski and I wrote to anchor a new motion picture miniseries, Young Aleister Crowley. One is never sure about film projects until they are completed. Certainly not this project. And I'll believe it when I see it, but things are moving along, okay. Whether I'll live to see any of it, it's another thing. One is never sure about film projects until they are completed, but it appears we're very close this time to making this happen. We've completed the pilot in 3 episodes. Stay tuned. And they bring it to an end with, thank you very much for your time. We would love to have you for this issue, for the interview, and in future issues with an article about your work, which we find wonderful, useful in terms of dissemination. And I thank them very much and give my best to your readers. So anyway, that is available right now. I went to the website where they actually reprint the whole thing. It's in Spanish, but you can click translate. But this is what they translated it from, and I invite you to keep in touch and keep track of the work of Pharo-Nox, especially if you're in Spanish-speaking countries or Spanish is your first language. Anyway, it was a privilege for me to do that. Okay, that's it. I looked up, I always look up what national holiday it is. Well, today is National Absurdity Day. National Absurdity Day. So all I have to say is, when you're talking absurdity, you're looking at me. Until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself, be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will.